Shalom Aleichem. This week we're starting Parshat Behar. So we're on page 696 in the stone edition of the Chumash. And this week's Parashah, one of its primary topics is Shemitah. Shemitah is similar to Shabbat. What's Shabbat? Shabbat is 6 days we work, 7th day we rest. Every week, always. Shemitah is a law that applies in Israel proper, where for 6 years you can work the land, you grow food. Remember, when the Jews came to Israel, it was an agricultural society. Everything was about planting and making and fruits and vegetables. That's how most people lived. That's why you had the mitzvah of giving ma'aser, 10% to the Levi, truma to the Kohen. It was an all of a society where everyone was planting food, planting fruits, vegetables and stuff like that. So 6 years you can do all that work on your field, and the 7th year you have to let your field stay fallow. You cannot do any work on it in the 7th year at all. That's one of the major topics that are found in this week's Parsha. And the second major topic is what's known as Yovel, or in English Jubilee, which is after 7 cycles of a Shemitah. So you have every 7 years is Shemitah, 7 cycles of that, so that's 49 years. On the 50th year, that's a Yovel year. Again, you cannot work on the land. So the 49th year and the 50th year, you won't work on the land. And during that 50th year, all Jewish slaves that became slaves, either they were caught stealing and wasn't able to pay it back, so they became a slave to the one who they stole from, or they sold themselves to work because they had no money, so they sold themselves as a slave. Those two groups of Jewish slaves are all freed during that 50th year of Yovel. Anybody in Israel, they never used to sell a house permanently, and you cannot sell a field permanently. You only sold it up to Yovel. So if it's 3 years into the cycle, you will sell, it's like a rent for 47 years. Because at the 50th year, everything goes back to the original owners. Everything goes back to the way it was. That's Yovel, pretty much in a nutshell. There are exceptions and there are different stuff there, but that's pretty much the basis of Yovel. And then the rest of the parsha talks about some helping a person whose business is failing. It talks about making the areas to live for the Leviim, for the Levis, and stuff as follows. So let us look and try to analyze this parsha and get some interesting information and some ethical lessons as well. The first thing we'd like to look at is the first verse on page 696. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe Behar Sinai Lemor. And Hashem spoke to Moshe on Mount Sinai, saying, Daber b'nei Yisrael, speak to the Jewish children, v'marta elehim, and tell them, Ki tavo el haaretz, when you're going to come to the land, Israel, asher ani noten lachem, which I'm going to give to you, v'shavat haaretz, and you will Shabbat la'Adonai. You will observe a Shabbat of the land. Sheish shanim tizar sadecha. 6 years you shall do your planting. V'sheish shanim tizmor karmecha. Other work. V'asafta et tivuata. Collect all the stuff that you do. V'shana hashivit. But on the 7th year, Shabbat Shabbaton yeh la'aretz. It should be a Shabbat on the land. Shabbat la'Hashem sadecha lo tizar v'chamecha lo tizmor. You do no work on that year. The interesting is the first verse where it says Behar Sinai Lemor, that Hashem spoke to Moshe at Mount Sinai. Well, we know the Torah was given in Har Sinai, but if you look at most of the other parashot, it doesn't say Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe Behar Sinai Lemor. It usually says Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe Lemor. So why does this week's parasha add in Mount Sinai? We know the whole Torah was given at Mount Sinai. So what is the Torah trying to teach us by adding in those words, Behar Sinai, and Mount Sinai? It's extra. It's not needed to tell us this information. What is the connection between Mount Sinai and the mitzvah and the commandment of Shemitah? So I'd like to give what I saw in this Sefer Aleinu L'Shabech, and he says as follows. Some people say, you have even today Bible critics. They take the Bible and they critique it. They say it cannot be God-made. It's man-made, and they show how it's man-made. And they try to prove that it was written by different people, different authors, and they consider it man-made. The Hatam Sofer says the reason why it says Behar Sinai on Mount Sinai and then it talks about Shemitah is to tell us that that's not true. Because in the mitzvah of Shemitah it says, later on in verse 21, it says that Hashem will make a blessing, and the 6th year crop, what you plant in the 6th year, will be enough for 3 years, it says. How could you write that if you're a man? How could you guarantee somebody that your produce will produce 3 times than usual? The only one who can say that, who can guarantee that blessing, is God. And therefore he says, Behar Sinai, to tell us that the Torah was given at Har Sinai. And the proof is to you, Shemitah, that Hashem says, if you keep Shemitah, it means the 6th year you'll plant. The 7th year you won't touch it. The 8th year, the land is all messed up because you didn't do anything in the 7th year. You only can begin planting in the 9th year. So you're going to have 3 years, you're not going to have any food. 6, 7, and 8. So Hashem says, in the 6th year, I'll give you enough for all 3. Now every year, 1st year, 2nd year, you get enough for 1 year. But God gives you a blessing in the 6th year for 3 years. And that's proof that it's from Sinai. Shemitah also takes a big role in a person's faith in God. Like we said, Israel was a society that was based on agriculture. Yeah, you did planting. That's how they lived. That was the society. And imagine a person who does a business and gives up his business for 1 year. God tells him, don't work for 1 year. It's a very hard thing to do, imagine. And here you have most of the community, most of society of Israel working on field are told not to work 1 year. It takes a very big goal on a person's faith in God in order to believe in God and leave his livelihood alone and not actually work at it. The Imre Shefer says that the connection between Har Sinai and Shemitah is another connection. He says Shemitah, we said, is like Shabbat. Where do we say all the blessing for the week? Where does it come from? Right? We say Ki Eshmera Shabbat, Kel Yishmereni. When we watch Shabbat, Hashem watches us. We know that when we watch Shabbat, we get the beracha. Mikor ha-beracha is Shabbat. The blessing for the entire week comes from Shabbat. The person who watches Shabbat, good, Hashem blesses his entire week. He makes him successful, whether in school, whether in business, and stuff like that, if he watches Shabbat properly. He says Shemitah is the same thing. The 7th year, if you watch it properly, you will have good, the next 6 years, and you can plant, you'll have good produce coming out from there. It's like Shabbat. You watch Shabbat, you watch Shemitah, you'll have good produce afterwards. He says, what's the connection between Har Sinai and that? He says, it's basically inactivity. When the Torah was about to be given, right, we all know the famous Midrash that says, all the mountains started to claim the Torah should be given on me. This Mount Carmel said, I'm the tallest, and this one said, I'm the biggest, and I'm the most beautiful. And every mountain got up and was telling God, it would be most appropriate for you to give the Torah on my mountain. And there was one little mountain, or could even be considered a hill, that didn't say anything. It just was there. It wasn't picking up his head to say anything. And that was Har Sinai. That was Mount Sinai. Mount Sinai was inactive, and it got the biggest blessing of having the Torah being given on it. Shabbat, we're inactive in a sense of not making money, of not going to work. Yet, that is the blessing for the entire week. Shemitah, we're inactive. We're not working on our fields. We're not working for our livelihood. That's where the blessing comes from, because that's the faith and that's believing in God, and Hashem will give you the bracha for it. Now, we said that Hashem will give the 6th year's crop to last for 3 years. Now I want to read the verses that deal with this and take a look and see what it says. We're going to be at verse 21 in chapter 25. So here we are. We're on page 700. Here's this guy, he's keeping Shemitah, and he says like this. Verse 20. V'chi tomru ma nochal b'shana hashvi'it. And if a guy says, what am I going to eat in the 7th year? Hein lo nizra lo ne'esov et tevuatenu. I didn't do anything on the field. I didn't prepare, I didn't take it in. V'tziviti et birchati lachem. And I'm going to command my blessing on them, b'shana hashishit, in the 6th year. Va'asat et hatevuah l'shlosh hashanim. And I'm going to give them enough for 3 years. The question that's asked on this verse, now it sounds all good on the surface, but one has to analyze what's happening in these verses. This pasuk in the Torah told me that if I ask and I say, God, I'm not working, how am I going to make money? How am I going to live? So God says, I'll give you a blessing and it'll last for 3 years. So I have to ask in order to get the blessing? So if I didn't say anything and I say, God, you told me to do it, that's it, I'm doing it, and I don't ask what's going to be, I don't get a blessing for 3 years? You understand the question? Why the guy who is doubtful in his faith, who doesn't believe in God that He's going to give him, he asks, and Hashem says, if you ask, then I'm going to give you 3 years worth. And the guy who doesn't ask, he doesn't get anything? So what's going on here? So, the Magid explains as follows. The Dubno Magid explains as follows. There are 2 types of blessings that Hashem can give a person in his parnasah, in his livelihood, in his money. One way, he says, is to give people more. A farmer, every year he has produce. It's a whole. You don't just take a vegetable and you eat it. The whole thing has to go. You have to plant it, you have to cut it, then you have to clean it, then you ship it. There's a lot of stuff to go into it. Wheat, for example, you have to throw it in the air, winnow, different procedures until you can actually come to eat those stuff that are in the ground. So God says, if you ask me, then I'll give you 3 years worth of produce. I mean, I'll give you, so if every year you had 100 bushels that came up, this year you get 300. It's a lot. That's a blessing. The other form of blessing is that you get 100 bushels like you got every year. But this time, that little bit stretches. Meaning, you have that same 100, but suddenly that's lasting you longer. A lot of times you get 100 stuff to grow, 25 of them are no good, this is like that, they spoil, they fall in, they're in the wrong place, they fall in the garbage, they don't last long. And sometimes God could give a blessing that 100 pieces can last you 3 years. Somehow, you eat a little bit, you feel full already. Sometimes a person eats, he ate a whole supper and he's still hungry. Mom, give me more. My wife, give me more. They give me more and you're still hungry. Then you get the sandwich, you get it, you're still hungry. And one time you can go somewhere, you eat something and you take a little bite of the cookie and that's it, you're full, right? You don't want to eat anymore. The same thing here. Hashem can give you plenty. If you ask, Hashem will give you 300. But it's not a true full blessing. Why? Because now you have to work 3 times as hard. You used to work 100 bushels. Now you have to work 300. You have all that extra work in the field to do. So it's a blessing because you asked, what am I going to eat? So Hashem gives you 3 times more because you're asking a question, so He'll show it to you. He'll give, but you have to work on it more. But if a person doesn't ask, and a person has full emunah in Hashem, then he gets the same amount, but it lasts him longer. Suddenly it stretches out to work for everything. Sometimes it happens, so when I used to work part-time, I used to work in a part-time job. That was the only job I had. And somehow I was able to pay my rent. I was able to pay everything. Now I got a full-time job, and now I'm falling behind in my rent. I don't understand. I got more money now. And see, Hashem already allocates everybody in Rosh Hashanah how much he's going to get. You think you're going to make more, but in essence, a person thinks he's making more, but he's going to end up paying the cops for tickets, the sanitation department, all these different extra taxes. Last year I got $800 back in taxes. This year I had to pay $500 in taxes. I don't know how it happened, but that's what happened. Everybody has a set amount. And Hashem could give you a bracha in a little bit that it stretches out more. Or He can give you more, but you'll have to work for it more, and it'll be more problems, and it cause you more difficulties.
That's why landlords work very hard.
It is the blessing of Hashem that enriches, Mishlei says. Hashem's blessing makes someone rich. And one need not add toil to it. Shlomo Melech says you don't have to work in order to get Hashem's blessing. Hashem's blessing comes to you. Person who wants to work more, you'll get more, but it won't be yours more. Or you'll have to work harder for it. It's not the same blessing as a person has full faith. If he doesn't ask the question, Hashem, where am I going to get food for 3 years? You'll get the same amount coming up, but it will last you longer. But if you don't have that full faith in God, but you anyway keep Shemitah, but you tell God, where am I going to eat? So God says, I'll give you what to eat and I'll show it to you. I'll give you 3 times as much. But you have to work on it more. You have to collect it. You have to do your things. Now, let's move on. The common denominator of most of this parasha, of the 24 mitzvot that are brought down in this parasha, is that parnasah comes from heaven. Livelihood is not based on man, but it's all based in heaven. And this plays a major role in a Jewish person's life. Like we mentioned, the people in Eretz Yisrael in the times of Yehoshua, Joshua, when they came in, they were a society of agriculture. That was their livelihood. And for many years they kept the Shemitah. It was emunah, to give up their life, mesirat nefesh, they gave up their souls sort of to keep Shemitah. They could have been scared out of the pants, how am I going to eat this year? But yet they believed in God, because they know, as it says, Kili kol haaretz, because Hashem says that the entire land is mine. And from this we get the idea of what's called onat mamon, financial wrongdoing. A lot of people, conventional thinking is, in the business world, it's a jungle. Right? And the only way to survive in the business world is survival of the fittest, right? Darwin's theory. The only way you're going to survive, if you're the most fittest. Which means, you can do anything to knock down the competition, you can say anything, you can do anything in order for you to survive. But a Torah Jew knows this is not true. That there are laws that govern how we do business. Because we believe that Hashem gives us the parnasah. So there's no need to cheat, there's no need to lie. One of the things that the Chafetz Chaim once said, the famous Chafetz Chaim, he said, when a person wants to become a shochet, a person wants to become a ritual slaughterer, he wants to make kosher meat, he has to study the halachot of shechita. He has to know what he's doing. He has to know how to cut the animal. He has to know what to check for, what to look for, what makes it not kosher, what makes it kosher. He says there are laws in the Shulchan Aruch, Choshen Mishpat, that deal with laws of business. Chafetz Chaim said that every person, before he goes into business, should learn these laws. So he knows that he's not stealing, that he should not make any mistakes when he's doing business. He shouldn't be making any sins. The person should learn the laws. There's a whole section in Shulchan Aruch about how to do proper business. And one of these halachot is price fraud. And it expresses itself in different ways. I want to give you a few examples. First for the businessman, and then we'll do the customer. Both of them it can apply to. A customer walks into a store and wants to purchase a certain item, which, what happens sometimes in stores, is temporary out of stock. The guy doesn't have it. But the storekeeper doesn't want to lose the customer, right? He's fine to do that. So what does he do? And this is where it's wrong. He begins telling the customer that the item that he wants is no longer good, it's out of style, it's not in fashion, it's old, it's no good. And he says there's a newer model, cheaper and better and higher quality, and he's lying out of his teeth. That's forbidden. You're lying. You're trying to steal. Get this guy's money. He came for something else. Sometimes the owner of the store realizes this man doesn't know how much the price really is for such an item, right? You can hear from the way he's talking. So you suddenly bring up the price 100 times more, right? You sell it them. You don't have, a lot of stores don't have prices on their items, so it depends who's coming in to buy it. So the guy comes in, oh, it's usually $50, no, it's $150. And the guy doesn't know better. That's also asur to do. It's forbidden. Same thing applies to a customer when he walks inside. First of all, if he knows he's not buying anything in that store, he's not allowed to drive the owner crazy. Meaning, sometimes kids walk into a store, how much is that, how much is that, how much is that, how much is that, and really they're not buying anything. That's also causing pain to the store owner because he's hoping he's going to make a business, and meanwhile you know you're not buying anything. Or if a customer walks inside and looks inside and he wants to buy a product, but he wants to get a bargain. Now, you're allowed to get a bargain. You're allowed to tell the guy, listen, I want to pay for this much for it. But what you're not allowed to do is walk inside and say, this? It's garbage. Why would I buy it? You know, I'll take it off for you for $10. Really, it costs $100. You know, something like that to sort of degrade the product and do these type of things is asur. Shulchan Aruch says you're not allowed to do such things. It's forbidden. The Dubna Magid, he says sometimes this, making a product like the businessman made it very big, and the customer makes it very low. He says sometimes it's the same person doing both of it. And he says that's what the pasuk in Mishlei says: death and life are in the power of the tongue. He says, what is this? A guy is a businessman. He has a store, so he's going to buy merchandise from the wholesaler. So when he comes to the wholesaler, he says, this is all garbage, I don't even need it, but you know what, I'll take it for half the price. And then when he comes to his store, he makes tchiyat hametim, he makes reviving of the dead. Suddenly these garbage products, anyone walks into his store, oh, it's the best product, you can't find anything else, and he sells it for a lot more. It's asur min Torah to do such things. It's forbidden practices. It sounds like common business practices, but it's actually asur. These are not permitted. A person, you can charge it, you can make a price, but it has to be fair. You can ask for a bargain, but don't degrade the product. Say, listen, I can't pay for this much, or I saw it somewhere else. If it's true, you saw it somewhere else for that price. You're just making it up. I saw it somewhere else. You can't do either. That's lying. Harrison has to be ethical when you're doing business. He doesn't think just because I have money, I can do whatever I want. A person should know that if he strictly upholds the guidelines of doing business, of the Shulchan Aruch says, he should know that Hashem will not let him falter, will not let him lose. Just because you think the only way to get ahead is to cheat and steal, it's not true. There are ways to survive. Hashem will survive, make you survive. I want to tell you a story that you should know that it even applies when doing business with Goyim. When you're doing business with Goyim, some people think, he's a Gentile, he's a guy, I can steal his money, I can do it. It's nonsense. There's no such thing. You can't steal money from anybody. If you start stealing from a guy, you're going to start stealing from a Jew, because stealing will lead one to the other. You cannot differentiate anymore. And plus, it's a big chil Hashem if you steal from them. You know, they see, they say, well, this is a Jew, this is someone who fears God, this is someone who's claiming they have the Torah. Well, it's nonsense. They're stealing from us. And they'll find out. Don't think you can trick them that they won't know. They will find out. Everyone will find out. There was a Av Beit Din in Yerushalayim once, and he said, I always have questions coming to me. Questions about daily life, questions about kashrut. He says, no one comes to me about questions about business. Apparently everybody knows what they're doing in business. Nobody needs a rabbi for that. But it's very untrue. Everybody has questions they need to go and ask. Harav Yaakov Kamenetsky, one of the Rosh Hashivas of Torah V'dat, when he used to live in Lithuania, prior to the war, he had a member of his community came to the rabbi and told the rabbi, I was in the post office, and I was buying some stuff there, and I gave the guy money, and instead of giving me change of a $10 bill that they had in Lithuania, he gave me 100 instead. He asked Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, what should I do? Can I keep it? It was his mistake. He's probably not going to know. Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky said, listen, the right thing to do is to go and return it. And so the man went and did that. Several weeks later, Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky now came to the post office. He needed to buy stamps. So he goes to buy the stamps, and he gives the money for the stamps, And the postal worker, the same guy, he gives the rabbi like 30 extra stamps. He puts it inside the package. And Rav Kamenetsky sees the extra stamps. He quickly takes it out and says, "Oh, I think you made a mistake," and he returns it. And he sees on the postal office postal worker, is smiling like he was checking the rabbi to see if he's going to seriously give it back or just walk out with it. Recently, someone posted a YouTube clip. It was an Orthodox Jew. They one of these channels. They do these things. They put a check and they put money on the floor outside of a bank. Mm-hmm. And they had people. You saw it, right? And people were walking by it. And one of the guys was an Orthodox Jew. And Baruch Hashem, he made us proud. He did the right thing. He picked up the money and the check. He walked inside the bank and he asked maybe someone who lost the name on the check. Maybe you know whose is this? And there the cameras came out and told him that we were checking what people would do. You know, a lot of times people are checking you. I mean, don't think the guy who's giving you that extra change is doing it by mistake. They really want to see, is this a Jew who's honest or not? Finally, when Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky came to America, he met some of the people from his community after the war. And he asked them, how did you survive? How did you escape? And a lot of the people from his community said, you should know that the one who saved us was that postal worker who worked in the post office. He was so impressed by the Jewish people, how they are honest, that when it came time when the Nazis were there and he was under threat of death if he would harbor Jews, save them and let them get out of the country. You see how much it is to be honest in your business dealings. You know, when I went to work, they made a mistake on my checks. They were giving me more money thinking that I was working the night shift. Now I work night shift. Before I was working day shift. They used to give me an extra $3 an hour because the night differential. Working for nights, you get more money. And I went to the manager and I went to the offices and I told them, you're giving me extra money. First of all, they were surprised that I came. But then they never even took it off. But I told them. They didn't take it off because they had to go through a lot of paperwork. Next year, when they redid the paperwork, they took me off. But for a whole year, they were giving me extra money. But I told them because I knew it's the wrong thing to do. You can't just take it. I went, if they did, now once I told them, that's their problem. Right? I already did my part. So I went and I told them, the person has to be honest. You know, sometimes they're checking you. They want to see. He's going to give back, he's not going to give it back. That includes in doing correct business in the right way and believing in Hashem is one of the reasons why we don't collect interest from from Jews. When we give money, lend money to Jews, we don't collect interest. And last time we spoke why we do collect interest from non-Jews, I think it was Parashat Mishpatim or something like that we talked about it. And that's why we give tzedakah and all these things, because we know we do not lose money by giving and by helping and by being honest, because everything comes from Hashem. I'd like to talk about one more topic and then we'll call it a night. It's let's go to verse 35. Pasuk Lamed Hey. It says as follows: V'chi yamuch achicha umato yadu imach vehechazakta bo ger v'toshav v'chai imach. The Stone translation: if your brother becomes impoverished, if he becomes poor, and his means falter, and he starts losing money, you shall strengthen him. Rashi says this means you have a businessman whose business is starting to go under. He's not yet under, but he's starting to go under. He said it's like a donkey. When a donkey has a load of packages on the donkey, as long as the donkey's still standing, although he's starting to fall, but if you come while the donkey's still standing, it's easy to fix the packages and easy to help the donkey stay standing. But once the donkey falls, then you have to have 10 people to pick up the donkey. And it's going to take a longer time. It's the same thing here. If you have a fellow Jew who has a business and is starting to fall, and you know he's starting to have hard times, don't wait till he actually falls and then give him tzedakah. Oh, I did a mitzvah, now I'm giving him tzedakah. No. The biggest tzedakah is to help somebody stay financially stable. Still let him have his business. Invest in it. Help him. Give him advice. Do something. That's the biggest form. And that's what the pasuk is telling us. But, as the Peninim says, it's not always money. Sometimes people are not poor in money. Sometimes people have money. You have rich people that have a lot of money, but sometimes they're poor in emotions. They don't have a joyful state. They're not happy. They're very, very much depressed. Sometimes poor people are very happy. They don't have a lot. They have nothing to be worried about. They have faith in God. They have an easy life. But the Torah tells us, it doesn't say someone who, it just says impoverished if he doesn't have something. It doesn't say necessarily money. If there's anybody that needs something, you have to help him. Someone needs a shoulder to cry on, an ear to someone to hear and listen to him. A lot of people need to talk. They don't know who to talk to. Sometimes it's hard to talk to a family member. Sometimes you're looking for a friend. Sometimes it's hard to talk to somebody. You need somebody who can listen to you. You should be that person, able to take someone, listen to them, laugh with them, joke with them, cry with them, help them. We know of how many stories of young men, teenagers, young men and women who were very depressed. Some of them committed suicide. And the only reason because they thought no one paid attention to them, they thought the world was a disaster. But if you would just give them that minute, say hello, say good morning, acknowledge them, and respect them from who they are, you can save someone's life just like that. I mean, there's countless stories. I mean, there was once when I was a kid. I remember that story that I heard was that there was a boy in I don't even think it was a Jewish school, but the story went that there was a guy. He was in school. He had no friends, and one day he was seen emptying out his locker. And when he was emptying out his locker, it was late after school. Everyone was already gone. And it was another guy there, another kid. And he said, "Listen, you want to go to the park with me? I'm going there now." So he said, "Okay, fine." And he went with him. And the next day he came and he re-put everything in his locker. And so his mother saw him bring everything home and take everything back to school. So she asked him, "What happened?" And he said, "Mom, in all honesty, yesterday I wanted to commit suicide. I cleaned out my locker because I didn't want you to go to school and have to take my stuff out. I thought I had no friends. I thought I had nothing. But suddenly this guy told me, come walk with me to the park. And my life changed around since then." How much is one word, one thing just to tell somebody, just to help them? It can change someone's entire life. Sometimes we don't see it. People hide it. They hide their depression. But if you know about it, it's very important to go and talk to them and try to show them that they're worth something. And especially, this is very special when people get older. When you have older people, 70, 80, 60 even. Sometimes these people feel that they're losing the limelight, that they're going out of the society. Society is going, there's computers, there's new technology, and they feel that they're not able to adapt to all that. And they feel that everybody is pushing them out of the mainstream, and they think they need help with everything. They're not independent anymore, and they feel like their life is very bad. Especially the older people that a person has to be very sensitive with. You come into the shul, you see an older person, you don't know him, you don't care about him, fine, but tell him hello, tell him good morning. Show him that he's still a person, that he's not old, and put him in some nursing home and forget about him. They need to be that they're part of us. They are. There's a lot to learn from older people. Allah is, once he's 70 years old, he's supposed to stand for him, whether he's a guy, whether he's a Jew, whether he knows Torah, whether he doesn't, just because of all his life experiences. It says in Tehillim, Ashrei maskil el dal. Praiseworthy is he who thinks about the needy. Not the one who gives the needy, who gives money to the needy, who contemplates, who thinks about the needy. The Gemara in Yerushalmi says as follows. There's a story. A blind man approached Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov for money. So Rabbi Eliezer, who had a shul, took him to the shul and brought him up to the chief rabbi's seat, the rabbi's seat, and put him in there. And then the Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, gave a derasha, he gave a speech about tzedakah and helping people. And he put a tray out in the front, and everybody in the shul came and put money on that tray. Afterwards, the blind man realized what Rabbi Yaakov did, because he was blind, he didn't see what he was doing. He didn't see where he put him, right? When he figured it out, he said, "You performed a very big chesed with me. Because I was going to go around from door to door asking for money. But you see how you help me? You put me in the front. You give me respect. That's the way a person has to treat every person who comes to collect tzedakah. When a person who's collecting for himself is poor and he's coming and to collect tzedakah, a lot of times people wait for them to come to them in the shul. The poor guy's coming and he's going to everybody in the shul. Like, yeah, whatever, we don't care about you. When you come, we'll take care of you. The person has a mitzvah to go up to the poor person and give it to him. Show him that you are coming to him. You want to give him. And respect him. And show him that we care about him. Not just like he's a nuisance and here's $1 and leave me alone. Chas v'shalom, chas v'chayilah. A person has to always have respect for everybody. And that's what David HaMelech meant when he said, Maskil el dal, who thinks about the needy. You don't treat them like trash. Don't think of them like, oh, just give them $1 and go. No, you think about them. How can I help them? Give them a cup of water if they come to your house. You know, you don't have to invite, if you're not comfortable inviting them inside, you don't have to invite them inside. If you have family, little kids, you don't want them inside. That's okay. It's understandable. But tell them, maybe you want something to drink. You can give them something to drink. Give them a cookie from on the way. Give them give them $2-3. Make them feel good. Oh, where you're from? Where are you collecting? What are you doing? You know, I hope everything goes. Give them a beracha. Let them give you a beracha as well. That's a very big mitzvah as well. And when we help people, and when we do these things, there's no way that Hashem is not going to help us back. We know if we do the right thing, Hashem is going to help us back. Now, some people say, how can I do it? How can I help this businessman who's losing? I don't have enough money to invest in his business. I don't have, there's nothing I can do, personally. Maybe the community, but me, there's nothing I can do. So I want to tell you, that you're not the first person to say that. When there was a prophet, Yirmiyahu, he was commanded to go and give prophecy and rebuke the Jewish people, tell them that the temple is about to be destroyed for their sins. And he tells God, Lo yadati daber ki nar anochi. He tells God, listen, I don't know how to speak. I'm just a small guy. I'm a nobody. I can't talk to them. They're not going to listen to me. God, you're asking the wrong guy. And God tells him, Al tomar na anochi. Don't say you're a small person. Don't say you're a youth. Ki al kol asher eshlachach telech ve'et kol asher atzavecha tidaber. Whatever I tell you to do, you're going to do. Whatever I send you, you're going to go. And the Alter of Kem said, this applies to everybody. He says, there's so much that can be done for every community when the Jewish members. People have ideas, but what do they say? Who am I to implement them? Who am I to start a revolution? Who am I to do something? I'm a youth, I'm a child, I don't have experience, I don't have the ability, and so much potential gets thrown away. Person needs to know that Hashem, if you're doing the right thing, Hashem will help you do it. There's no point to say, who am I, what am I can't do anything. And it comes many ways. Sometimes a person comes collecting for a sick patient in the hospital, and instead of giving them you can give them $100, you can give them $5. But you say, why should I give him $100? It's not like my $100 is going to pay for his bill. What is my help going to do? And everyone thinks about himself. What is my help going to do? They're never going to give anything. But when you just do what you can, and don't think you're a youth, you try, and let Hashem take care of the rest. A person has to give. Try to give what you can. There's a story, and with this we're going to end. It's a mashal that's brought down as follows. I took a picture of it to say it over. A group of people were walking across a bridge. Suddenly the bridge collapsed and all the people fell into the water beneath. Now there were two people were walking by and they saw the people screaming for help. And they jumped in to save them. Meanwhile, a third person came by and told those two people, fools, why are you going in? You can't save everybody. So why are you going inside? Of course, who was the real fool? The one who didn't go inside and telling everyone else, don't go inside because you can't save anyone. It's better to save what you could than what you can't, right? Do what you could. Don't say, I can't do everything, so I'm not doing it. The person has to do what he can. And the Chafetz Chaim explains, sometimes people get overwhelmed when they see how many poor people there are. Suddenly you go into a shul and there's 50 million poor people. If you go to Jerusalem, you go to the Kotel everywhere. Every 5 seconds, another thing. You go to any synagogue in Brooklyn, every minute there's another guy coming around collecting tzedakah. You're like, I can't help everybody. And some people go like this. I don't have anything. I don't have anything to give you. You say, how can I really help everybody? They're like the man who says, don't save everybody from the water because you can't do it. The person has to do what he can. Your job is not to get everything done like the Pirkei Avot says. The job is a lot. You do what you can, and God will give a reward for what you could do. You're not obligated in more than you can, but you're obligated to do what you can. And therefore, I think the essence of this parasha is that a person has to have faith that everything is from Hashem. Both his business and helping people and being righteous, being not even righteous, being what's called upright, doing the right thing. It will take us and lead us on a path of Kiddusha, Tahara, Bezat Hashem will be able to see Mashiach from here, B'yameinu. Amen. If there are any questions now, we'll take them.